Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, episode 2 with Andy. We had some good feedback from the first one. We just kind of dived into the deep end there and just put it out there to see what sort of traction it got, see if anybody had any feedback for us, and it got quite a lot of views and some subscribers already, so thank you for that. Today, we're just going to dive a little bit deeper, maybe into HK, Holographic Kinetics, or...
Yeah, we'll just see where the conversation goes again.
Yeah.
Hello to everyone, by the way.
You're
all well.
We had a few comments on the first one just regarding the HK Holographic Kinetics. Just it's something that people had never heard of, which is great. Obviously, that's what Andy does. So it was good that people took an interest, and we got some good feedback. So we're back again for round 2 to see where this one takes us. So
on that front, I have actually had a HK Holographic Kinetics client this morning. He came in, very good session, and just really to point out, it is a spiritual modality, basically taking the power back for the person on the table. It does require the person taking responsibility for what they've created for themselves in their lives, but that's the push and pull of, and the paradox of the modality, taking that responsibility for what they've created in their own lives actually empowers them. And a lot of the times people don't see it that way around.
Yeah.
Actually realizing that you're much more powerful, as I spoke about last week, you're much more powerful than you realize. That goes hand in hand with when you're doing a session, the person realizes, oh my goodness, I see what happened in my childhood, for example, where that thought process was then repeated and repeated, and has now become a repeating cycle, which obviously people come to me because they're fed up with these particular repeating cycles.
Yeah.
And so for them to realize that they actually created that means that going forward, they can change their mindset easier, knowing, okay, so now how I think and how I view things, etc., is having an effect on my immediate world and surroundings. But what I wanted to point out was that you don't have to be spiritually advanced, don't have to even believe in it. That's not necessary. The guy that came to see me today was a policeman. Okay. It's probably the first policeman I've worked with. And it's such a simple process. We had no issues dealing with getting to the point we needed to get to, because a lot of it is done initially with the kinetic testing. And then after that, you're speaking with them. And yeah, it was straightforward, everything married up. He could see what had happened in his past and had continued through different events and cycles that were taking place in his life. It was a repeating pattern over and over again. And he came off the table like, wow, yeah, he felt much lighter, much better. The main thing is with this is it's not a case of anyone can come off a table, oh, I feel better. Do you know what I mean? Anyone, any modality can do that as such. It's how you feel a month later.
Yeah, the permanent long-term
exactly.
change of it.
And the whole point of holographic kinetics is it's a permanent change.
Yeah.
If that's what you wish it to be, that's what your intention is. You want to make that change. So
I guess as well, having a session myself and just knowing from experience, it actually brings awareness to the specific thing.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, it's trust. It brings awareness. You know, you might have certain cycles that repeat, but certain times in your life where you struggle with trusting people.
Yeah.
And the HK will, you know, you go through the process, you find out what's causing that issue.
Yeah.
But it also brings awareness for it. So then when you move forward after you've obviously had the session, had the treatment, you can move forward and you can look at, okay, so before the treatment, I would go through this cycle and I'd get to this point, and then there would be, you know, I would back away because of the trust issues, for example.
Yeah.
But then moving forward, you kind of like pull yourself up on those certain things, in them certain situations, and you're like, okay, well, before I would have shied away because of my trust issues, whereas now, I'm sort of heading forward and moving forward without stopping myself, without even necessarily knowing that you are stopping yourself. It can
Yeah.
be completely subconscious,
Yeah.
but it just kind of clears that road, clears the blockages in the road
Yeah.
of that path, would you say?
Well, that's the subtlety of it, where you're not even realizing. It's not like
Yeah.
you wait, oh, now I'm going to trust everyone. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It didn't work like that for you.
No, it didn't.
But you suddenly realize when you look back, oh my God, I've changed. Now I'm going to give a
Yeah.
world exclusive here, guys. I hope you're ready, because Scott doesn't know this is coming,
Okay.
because I've never told him before. But when I first met Scott,
Yeah.
there was an issue for me with trust with you.
Right. Okay.
And I don't have trust issues with other people normally.
Yeah.
This is how powerful it is. Because he had an issue with trust, that then projected onto me.
Yeah.
So then I've like, our mate Simo has said, yeah, Scott's a great guy and all the rest of it, but I had an issue of trust going on with me.
Yeah, which you've never
with
experienced.
You.
Didn't know that.
Which, like I said, you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
But it goes to show how powerful
Yeah.
interactions are between people all the time. It goes on all the time.
Yeah.
It's not just that was me and you. It goes on all the time.
Yeah,
it's
so it would
like
have
a
been me with everyone.
transference and a counter transference, which is classic counselling terminology.
Yeah.
But it's a thing.
Yeah.
All of your classic psychologists have all spoken about transference. I think Carl Jung was the first one who really nailed down what transference was,
Okay.
which is basically we're transferring our thoughts, because we're all energy beings.
Yeah.
So because we're energy beings, these are energies that are flowing between us.
Yeah.
So obviously you clearing your trust on the HK session, however many months later, has obviously made a difference, because I've trusted you enough to do a podcast with you.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, because I guess in everyday life, when you meet new people, whether it be clients for work or, friends of friends, stuff like that, all different paths, but you kind of get a vibe from somebody.
Yeah.
And it
You
makes
can't, it's
complete
unseen.
Yeah.
And
Unseen, but a gut feeling
Yeah.
almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now it makes a lot of sense, because it's like, well, if this person has trust issues, for example, me, then I'm projecting those trust issues out onto everybody I meet,
Yeah.
and they're going to feel the same sort of vibe from me.
And then what happens? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Where now someone's like, well, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. All subconsciously, remember 95% of our decisions that we make in life, emotionally and psychologically, come from the subconscious. So we're not even realizing how we're behaving a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But we do realize the effect of that behavior. So then, that has a knock-on effect. So you can look at aspects of your life, both whether it's personal or business, where that lack of trust then manifested into situations where, you're now justified in not having that trust, because it's just happened.
Yeah, and that'll keep repeating, like you say, repeating patterns. You'll keep going through that cycle until the pattern's broken. Yeah. Which then, I guess, well, I know now from experience of obviously going through it, but not just maybe trust, but every single emotional feeling, maybe, whether it be anger that you're projecting, whether it be shying away because like a timid character, stuff like this, but it could have been from something obviously in the past. But every single emotion that you're feeling when you're interacting with people is being projected onto them, and they'll have almost a magnetic response to that. And you're both not even realizing it necessarily.
No, indeed.
If you're not aware.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So really what I want this podcast to become is just for people to become more aware of themselves, of their own behaviors, of their own habits, but also that they can change them.
Yeah.
It is possible, do you know what I mean? And it's more than possible, and it's simple.
Yeah.
So you're in a situation where you can actually make changes, lifelong changes that affected you through your whole life and will carry on affecting you through your whole life. But with that awareness that you have of, okay, I can see this repeating cycle, this repeating behavior that I do, these repeating things that keep happening to me.
Yeah.
You can make those changes.
Yeah. I'll from probably years of just self-development books, audio books, podcasts, things that I've read and listened to, and I've kind of learned within myself to find the catalysts of the things that are both good and bad. So if you approach a situation like the trust thing and you're pulling yourself away, trying to find that catalyst, trying to become aware of that catalyst.
Yeah.
And then on the good side as well, okay, so I'm going to jump into this and I can go full bore into it and not have any, second thoughts or any thoughts on consequences that could happen or something like that. But then it's also looking for that catalyst on that side of things as well. So that, okay, so why can I do this but I can't do this? And I find that the HK almost brought to surface the ones that I couldn't necessarily cure, should we say, or become aware of within myself. And it was like, okay, I've still got a blockage. What's stopping me from doing this? What's stopping me from doing that? Why can I do this but I can't do that?
So how did you find reading different self-exploration books or listening to podcasts or videos, and looking at life management and life coaches and stuff like that? How did you find HK different to all of those things then that you looked at previously?
Okay, so that's a good question, because a lot of the books and the videos from the top people in the world, from like sort of NLP people to life coaches to everything, they all kind of talk about the same thing, but it's almost like you just kind of force yourself through, or you just kind of become aware of it, become aware of your actions, become aware of your thoughts, and then try to, in the moment, change that. But a lot of the time when we're in the moment, we haven't got time to take a step back and think about what's going on before we react to something. Because this could be like a 5-10 minute more, like we have to dive into it. It's only sort of retro afterwards. You go back and you look at it and you think, oh, I could have done this different. Whereas with HK, I found when them situations would come up post HK, it almost kind of like ironed out the creases without me having to necessarily pull myself up in the moment
to consciously think, oh, how I've got to behave here. The decisions were already in place, had changed, and so your natural reaction to them had changed.
So instead of having to consciously pull myself up in the situations, subconsciously the creases were already ironed out. And then when you look back and go, well, oh, I didn't react that way like I usually would. So so that's the difference, I guess, for me, from my experience.
You see, that's the beauty of HK. It's the one modality that I know of where you're working with the client's spirit and their spirit. I, as a practitioner, all I'm doing is facilitating the client's spirit to make those changes. And that's why it's so powerful, because we are all spiritual beings. Whether people believe it or not is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether they are, because they're still here. Every indigenous culture around the world knows that they're spiritual beings. Everyone. It's only really in modern day through religion and through science in modern day that we've been basically, our thought process has been cast away from any spiritual connection by design.
I was about to say by design.
Okay, and that's not because it's a conspiracy. I saw something, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, so make sure I come back to what I was talking about. I saw a post on Facebook during the week, a guy I know, and he said his post was he'd watched something about Lockerbie. It must have been something on TV recently, a series about Lockerbie, about the Lockerbie air disaster. And he said, in big bold words, I'm no conspiracy nut, but I've just watched this Lockerbie series, WTAF, right? We are allowed to swear on this, so what the actual fuck, right? And I found that quite amusing from the perspective that the first thing he had to say is, I'm no conspiracy nut. And I had to reply to him just because I felt in the moment, I went on Facebook this week because it was my birthday. Thank you for the birthday wishes, everyone. Very
Happy
kind of
birthday.
you. So I'll go on there just to thank everyone who's taken the time out to
Yeah.
make send those well wishes. So I felt compelled just to answer, and I just basically said, the moment you think outside the box, the moment you're not following the mainstream narrative, the moment you're questioning the mainstream narrative, all those who aren't doing it already labelled you a conspiracy nut.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So the
that's
moment
the
you
nature
posted
of it.
that comment,
And
that
someone
post,
else made the comment that the word conspiracy was actually formulated by the CIA after the JFK assassination to basically put down anyone who's going to question the
who went
narrative.
against the narrative. Yeah.
And
Careful,
you can
we're gonna
see
get
how
YouTube
powerful
strike.
that has been as a tool to stop people from asking questions
And being labelled. They don't want to be labelled
People
something.
don't want to be labelled.
No.
Now, I know just by doing this podcast and talking about these things, there'll be labels.
Yep.
And what, as I said last week, what other people think is none of my business, and the same should go for everyone
else,
because you've got to live your life true to yourself, and the most important thing in that life is your inner journey, which is just ironing out those creases.
Okay.
And there's ways of doing it, and it's about empowering yourself. You think of how much time people might spend on their physical looks, whether it's in the gym or swimming, the dedication they have to that, or putting makeup on, or choosing the right clothes to wear, the amount of time we spend externally.
Yeah, on the external as opposed to the internal.
And never on the internal. But I don't think there's many people out there that would debate that how they look on the external, whether it's by going to the gym a lot or makeup or clothes. Everyone makes a bit of an effort to go out because they want to feel good about themselves.
Yep.
And the more you have to do work on the external, the less you're working on the internal. And is that because the internal, you're not feeling secure within the internal, within yourself, within your thoughts, and so you're trying to change the external to make yourself feel better. So
which is to tie into where you were before you came off on a tangent about us all being energy beings. That's why you see a lot of people who are authentically themselves. They will attract what they want, more people. They'll almost attract. So people who, how do I put this? People who are just effortlessly themselves. They don't care what anybody thinks. They're just completely 100% authentic. You'll often see them sort of flow through life, and everything sort of falls on a plate for them, so to speak. And then you get the people that almost force trying to be who they want to be. Whether that be through an external, the way they dress, the way they. Now, yes, it all matters, in my opinion, but they'll almost come across more bumps in the road. It's almost like the magnets are repelling, because you're trying to force it so much.
Absolutely.
It pushes everything else
out.
Absolutely, yeah. Whereas when your energy is at a level of just authenticity, and you don't care, you're just going about your business. None of this out here is affecting you, and you're just kind of focused on what you need to do. That's when I find everything gravitates towards that.
Yeah, that's really well put, because the bottom line is it should be a free flow of energy. As long as you're allowing the free flow of energy to exist, that means clear thought, not worrying what other people think, not being reacting to this or not reacting to that, but that clear free flow of energy, then the pathway opens up to, at the end of the day, we all want to create reality for ourselves, a positive reality. And that's, you can see just by what you've said and what I've said now, that having negative thoughts or imposing thoughts or reactions blocks that energy. The same as trying to force something laws of physics, you try and force something, you're actually causing a blockage.
Yeah.
Whereas a case of putting it out there and letting it flow, then that energy flows.
Yeah. And I guess that's where also a lot of the people that speak about manifestation and things along that nature, it all ties in. You know, you put out what you want and then you forget about it.
Yeah.
And you just have to make sure that each day you're focused on yourself and you're focused towards what you want.
Yeah.
And your actions are, adding up to that. Whereas I think every day, if you're constantly thinking, I need this, I need this, I need this, you're coming from an energetic field of lack, that you don't have it already. You're not worthy of it necessarily. Whereas when you come from an authentic, okay, well, I don't need anything, I'm just myself, that's when these things that the path that you want to take in life just sort of paves its way right in front of you.
Yeah. So we know in the past there's been lots of books on manifest your own reality. The Secret and all of that. I remember watching that a long time ago, and although it was very interesting, I watched it at the time and was like, oh wow, I personally didn't have the motivation or inclination, because it was all based on material wealth basically.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have that. And I don't know why, don't get me wrong, I would like to be able to, we know that if you're financially well off, it gives you more choices in life. I wouldn't say, oh, I don't want that. It's not what it. But I'm not motivated to
buy that.
Yeah. So I kind of learnt from it, but I didn't then put it into practice because it wasn't my calling, so to speak. I didn't feel the need for it. You've got to want to be motivated to want something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone listening wants good health.
Yeah. You'd think so.
You would think so.
That should be the main priority for people.
And the importance of really me deciding to do this podcast in the end is into your internal, your emotional, psychological, spiritual health. That has to come first.
Yeah.
If that doesn't come first, then the external and the physical can't manifest.
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason for that. You look around this room, for example.
Okay.
That chair, that table, that laptop, the books, the wall. Okay?
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. It all started with a thought.
Yeah. It's all a manifestation of the internal.
Yeah. But if you say to people, when you point that out, for example, they're like, okay, that's a little bit, but you have to go back. You have to go back and look.
Strip it right down.
Where does this all begin? And everything in here began with a thought first. And then it was brought into the physical by building it, etc. But it had to start with a thought. Okay?
Yep.
But if I ask you to hand me a thought, you can't, because it's invisible.
Yeah.
But does that mean that thought
doesn't exist?
Well, of course it does.
Yeah.
You tell someone who's going through a really depressed state at the moment, you tell them that thoughts aren't real.
Yeah.
You tell someone who's really happy, just so happy in their in the moment, that thought that they're having, that happiness that's brought, tell them that's not real. Yeah, it is real. It's just because, again, I think I mentioned it last week, we are so easily distracted into everything else going on in our lives that we don't actually sit down and maybe just spend a little bit of time on focusing on, what did he just say there? And oh yeah, it is real. So if your thoughts are a real thing, but they're in the invisible, then
what if I thought different things?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And what else is there? Again, that thought is in a different dimension. That's why I said last week, just to sort of help people get their heads around what I said, we are multi-dimensional beings in a multi-dimensional world.
Yeah.
Okay. And that sounds woo-woo to some people. It's like, what you want about? It's just my physical body here. and all my thoughts come from my brain, etc. Well, science has proven that they've never been able to find the memory.
Yeah.
They don't know where consciousness comes
Yeah, I
from.
was about to say that,
All right, they
consciousness.
don't know.
I actually watched something on that this week where they were trying to figure out what is consciousness.
Yeah. And so even to this day, where we're so technically advanced, how come they still don't know where consciousness comes from?
Yeah.
So, the whole scenario of we're just meat suits flying through space at 666,000 miles an hour, all right, and when we die, that's it. You have to put those into question.
Yeah.
And that is really, I'm not expecting people to jump on board 100% with what I'm saying, because it's too much of a leap.
No, but hopefully it opens up the
questions have to be asked.
Yeah.
And if anything I've said so far to date about hand me a thought, you can't, it's in the invisible and it exists, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay, then, if you can debate that, then obviously
it will be disproven though, won't it?
It will. But you know what? And this is a key element. It may have been mentioned last week as well. This is how creative we are as human beings.
Yeah.
We create in these situations like procrastination, for example, all right, where we won't do the necessary thing to make our lives better, to improve our lives. They will procrastinate. We have to use our creativity to procrastinate.
Yeah.
We'll find something else to do. We'll do this, we'll do that. I didn't realize until I was, how old would I? In my 40s, that I had a massive fear of failure that was coursing through my body. I didn't even realize it because for years I had managed to very creatively find ways of not looking at that issue.
Yeah.
And it was only when I finished the first year of the counselling course where I had to do the case studies and I couldn't do them. I had just come out of the print trade. I'd been laid off. Actually, I got sacked, but that's another story. That's why I'm sat here, really, is because I'm not very good at being told
what to do
and when to do it.
Bark when you're meant to bark. And
yeah, on a level when you've got to do it if you're employed by someone.
Yeah.
To a degree, but when it then becomes, it breaks the moral and ethical grounds, and you're still told to do it.
Yeah.
Nah. So, it's one of those things. And you know what? At the time, it was traumatic. It was the best thing that ever happened. Again, it's when things happen in life, you turn them to your advantage. It's always a silver lining. It's up to you to find them. So rather than using your creativity to not face the things in your life that are challenging, that are stopping you from moving forward emotionally, psychologically, physically, instead of using that creativity to procrastinate, you can use it.
Dive straight into
You can use it to actually, and that the way of using that is, where's the silver lining?
Yeah.
To create for that positive. What can I find within this issue which is actually beneficial?
Yeah.
So for me, in this example was, okay, well, now everything that I've been learning over the last 20, 30 years in my life, I can now put into practice.
Yeah.
Even though that initial moment of the trauma of, oh my God, I've been given 3 days notice.
Yeah.
After working there for 13 years, and I've got to provide food and shelter
for your family,
for my family, young family at the time. So obviously you have to go through that, but it's about, did I focus on that and that only? To a degree, but I also, okay, now I can move forward. So, it's not always easy to move forward straight away, but if you have that intention of, I want to, what's the silver? Well, now I can put all of this good information that I've learned into practice. Everyone can always find a silver lining. It might be if you're in an abusive relationship, well, at least I know what that person's like now. I don't need to be with that person anymore.
I guess that goes to tie in with the energetic beings, spiritual beings that we were just saying a moment ago. It's not focusing on the negative. you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it's like some people will put their trust in God, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to surrender to my situation,
Yeah.
and I'm going to put my faith in God or whoever, whatever higher power they necessarily believe in.
Yeah.
But they surrender to the moment and they go, okay, well, if it's meant to be, it will be. And I guess that's exactly when you surrender like that, same as you. Okay, well, I'm in this situation. I've been laid off.
Yeah.
I need to provide, but I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to stir up a whole realm of negative emotions around me where I get into an anxious or depressive state,
causing the block.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to surrender to my situation. I'm going to set my intentions along the path where I feel my intuition is telling me this is what you need to do. This is the way to go.
Yeah.
And then it kind of all just works out.
Yeah.
And I think most people could relate. You can let us know if you agree or disagree with this, but most people now that I speak to will say, well, if it's meant to be, it will be. And they kind of just surrender to, it's out of my hands. When really it's not, it
No.
isn't in their control.
Yeah.
But by surrendering to that moment and surrendering to it, it's almost like they've put it out there.
Yeah.
They're letting it go.
Yeah.
And if it's meant to happen, it will happen.
So it's surrendering and it's out of my control are contradictions
Yeah.
from a HK or from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, surrender and let go. What will be kind of thing. But again, what we're talking about is finding that silver lining of, well, what can I do to make that change?
Yeah.
So you let go of the negative. So when you spoke there, it was a very good point you made. And I said blockage, and straight away, intuitively, I was just like, okay, it's a blockage, but that's too simple a term. Oh, it's just a blockage. We are free-flowing beings, free flow of energy. Okay, if we're on the in that clear focus, clear state of mind, etc. Everything around us, nature continues to free flow. Okay. When we have that blockage, what happens is it gets stuck. We create that blockage, and then you become stuck in that moment of time.
Yeah.
So then you're in that repeating. Some people, and a lot of people will be able to relate to this, are stuck in that same moment of time for years and years because something traumatic might have happened to them, limiting beliefs about themselves, stuck in that moment of time. And this is where the HK comes in, where that was actually created, that moment in time.
You can go back to
HK accesses that moment, spirit changes that moment in time, clears it, creates a new moment because it has to be replaced where that didn't happen. Okay, sounds fanciful and all the rest of it, but thoughts are real. And how we think, and like the guy coming off the table today said, I feel so much lighter. And it's like, yeah, and that will continue because you're no longer stuck in that moment of time.
Yeah.
So now you've got that new timeline, and he walked out the door. You could see the gratitude and the lightness in him. You could see. I mean, I've had people come off the table. Oh my God, my voice has changed. And it's like, yeah, that's because what took place in the session. I won't go into now what happened in that particular session, but straight away it's like my voice has changed, and people notice a difference in themselves as well because it's the powerfulness of that modality just proves that this internal thought process that is going on in us, the change has to be made there first for the physical external to be able to.
And I think it weighs down heavily, that trauma or that part of somebody's life where they've got caught in this cycle. Like you said about they walk out and they feel all light. I walked out feeling like I was floating. It was just, I was, it's hard to explain the feeling unless you actually go through it.
Yeah.
But it was almost like gravity pushing me down onto the floor had just been lifted, and I was like, I was just so light, and I felt like I was floating out of here.
That's what he said today. He said he felt so much lighter. And just to clarify for everyone, there's no trance work involved. No hypnosis. All you're doing,
full consciousness whilst
you're fully conscious the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's the moment you start going into being in a trance out of consciousness, so to speak, then you're letting your guard down. You're coming out of, see, so this is something I will get into a lot more over the coming weeks and months, is that whilst you're in your own game, whilst you're in your physical self and you're just doing your own thing, of course things are going to go on around you. Okay, how you react to them is up to you. Okay, if you react to them and you get caught up in that dimension of negativity, then it's going to have an effect on you. Likewise, if you get caught up in, you go into an atmosphere where it's a really positive environment, etc., then so you're going into that, then that's going to be really positive. You're going to enjoy that positive moment. Look at a football stadium, for example.
Yeah.
Ipswich over the last 2 seasons, what a place it has been.
Euphoric. Some games, really euphoric.
And everyone's just up. This season, you know, especially with the last game losing to Southampton, everyone's down, they're booing. But that collective energy is so powerful.
All
right.
And so it's true because when you leave the stadium, we went a couple of weeks back. When you leave the stadium, if it's the negative booing, you feel like this, you know, your physical changes because of the feeling of the collective. And then vice versa. When it was one of the euphoric winning moments of the last season, that gained us promotion, you walk out and you feel like you're floating. You just, you know, you're buzzing. So
the scenario for me personally is I don't get caught up in either. I'm there to observe. Now, that can be looked at, well, that's a bit boring. That's not the means of this conversation. In those negative situations, what I'm saying is you have a choice as to whether you're going to. I have a choice. So in a way, I'm just using my awareness, my spiritual knowledge, awareness that I can get caught up in this negativity, or choose not to. Okay. So I forgot where I was going with this conversation originally, but we do have a choice of whether we. So being in your own game. So being in my own game and being an observer of what's going on around me means I don't get affected by it.
Again, and this is going back internally. Like you've been saying.
Again, so it's intention. My intention is to observe. I do get caught up in other things. Of course I do. I'm human. It happens. It's a learning curve. I ain't no guru. Do you know what I mean? I'm as raw and real today as I was back when I used to be out one of the lads back in the day. Do you know what I mean? I'm no different. I've just learnt how to affect my own personal space when I stay in my own game. And being in your own game, you can have your boundaries. Okay, having my boundaries now, I learnt boundaries through doing the counselling course. When I didn't have boundaries, I didn't have them for myself with other people to a degree. And that meant I also didn't have them myself for other people coming into mine. So because those boundaries were down, I was affected by people.
Pulled left, right,
I was affected by people a lot. All right.
Yeah.
And so when you're giving out all the time that you just want to get on with people and, you know, all get on, and then someone you've done nothing wrong to is then being a dick.
Comes in and,
you know what I mean? And then I'm taking that personally. Do you know what I mean? I had a choice as to whether I took that personally or not. So being in my own game, nothing can affect me. So people who have been down this path a little bit more, think about that when some people are out there, some proper hardcore people out there talking. I mentioned 2 of them last week, and they're not being psyopted, they're not being attacked, they're not this, because they're staying in their own game. I'm watching this take place and I'm like, they're not aware of it themselves, but they're staying in their own game. And when you're streetwise enough, both on the physical and the spiritual, not to get pulled in, I've seen it take place where people have tried to pull them into their games, and they're like, no, I'm staying on my path. So when you stay in your own game, physically, internally, nothing can affect you. The moment you come out of that, you go into someone else's game. So for example, on a physical aspect, if I come into your house, whose rules are they?
They should be my rules.
Well, they would be your rules. It's your house.
If my boundaries are up and I'm, you know. Yeah.
So there's not many people around. There'd be very few that would allow someone to come into their house, take their shoes off,
Yeah.
and put their feet up
Do
on the
as they
table.
please. Yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So on the physical, I go into your house, they're your rules. You
Yep.
come into my house, my rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same on the invisible. It's no different.
Yeah.
Again, the invisible is real, a thought is real. So if I'm from the internal perspective, psychological, going outside of my game, whether it be through drugs, for example. This is why things like ayahuasca and things like that, ayahuasca, it's a healing medicine, all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute BS.
Yeah.
Like anything in life, there has to be the cookie, the sweet, the cake there to tempt you in.
To draw you in, yeah.
But there's a price for it.
Yeah.
And the price is you've allowed something else, some other entity in, multiple dimensions, multiple beings, multi-dimensional beings. You come in, then you're inviting something else in. So
that's where the quote that you've said to me before, he who enters the game of another is subject to the rules of that game.
Yeah, that's a Steve Richards quote.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most profound things I ever read and learned. And it's just, if you can stick to that mantra on its own, we'll repeat it again. He
who enters the game of another is subject to the rules of that game.
Absolutely.
And those rules are dictated by the person whose game you've entered.
That on its own can make such a difference to people just through listening to that in this podcast, if they put that into practice.
Over my journey, I don't really know. I can't really put a time on it, but I've learned to exactly what we've just been talking about is you pull yourself away from certain situations. And I've been doing this since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
If something happens, you can pull yourself away from it and you can think, okay, well, I'm in control of how I react to that. And then probably the last sort of 5 years or so, when I've really delved deep into the psychology side of things, the thoughts, the frequencies, the vibration, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It really becomes so obvious that if you allow yourself to enter the game of another, then you can really get caught up into some things.
Yeah.
On both sides of the coin, positive and negative things.
Yeah.
And there's a guy that I can't remember his name. I think it may have been a guy called Andy Frisella who said this on one podcast I listened to, and it's you've got 100 bars of energy per day.
Right.
Now, you either take control of those bars of energy and you use them for things that are going to be beneficial to you to go down the path you want to go down, or you allow other people to take those bars of energy from you. So, for example, you get in an argument with somebody. We control how we react to that argument. Now, we can either observe it and go, okay, this is what it is. This is how I'm going to deal with it. Putting your boundaries up. No, I'm not allowing you to pull me into that argument.
Yeah.
Or whatever that situation being. But, you can, 100 bars of energy a day, you can give 50 bars of those energy to something negative situation, which could be a 1 minute or 60-second part of your day.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel with your boundaries, putting your boundaries up.
Yeah.
Having your boundaries, staying at what you call 0 point. So not allowing yourself to get too excited if it's good, or not allowing yourself to get too down if it's bad.
Yeah.
And staying in almost like a neutral 0 point, as you call it, a neutral position. Okay, I'm aware, but my boundaries are up. I'm not going to allow myself to get carried away here or carried away here. And I'm not going to allow these people, this situation, this circumstance to draw me in too much.
And then dictate the rest of your day.
Dictate the rest of it,
yeah. So this will be a good one to end up on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's really well put about the 100 bars. Now you said if it's 50%, so everyone will have and know themselves whether they give 99% of their bars away or 10%. Maybe we'll say, for argument's sake, people generally give 50% of their bars of energy away to other people, get caught up in an argument. get caught up on what they hear on the radio, what they see on the television. That's giving your energy away.
Yeah.
Because you're drawn in, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. You can't affect it.
No, completely out of everyone's control.
But
usually.
really, the fact that you're energetically reacting to it, you are affecting it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're giving your emotional energy to that, the argument, what's going on down the road, overseas, here, there, wherever, you're actually feeding that collective energy. You're fueling it. You are fueling it. So everyone will know to a degree how much they give. Remember, each scenario, that relationship, that event is a separate dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all separate dimensions, and people will know how much of their energy they give to that dimension, how much of their energy they're giving away to that dimension, to that relationship, to that event. Everyone will know within themselves how much they're giving. Now, what I want this podcast to help do is realize that with just having that awareness,
mm-hmm.
okay, you're already making changes.
Yeah.
Okay, and no one's expecting you, and this is where people can give up. I'm going to the gym. This is from a physical, but I'm going to the gym and I'm going to work out, and they want an Arnold Schwarzenegger body within 6 weeks,
yeah,
or within 2 weeks. It doesn't happen straight away. They give up.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're doing is you're building up bit by bit, and every time you go, so the same.
It's like
with
a deposit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into the bank.
Absolutely. So it's no different with your thought process.
Yeah.
And how you can be energetically drawn into different aspects, different dimensions, and giving your energy away,
mm-hmm.
giving your power away, is as long as you have that awareness and with intention, you're like, right, I'm not going to feed that anymore. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you go from like 50% down to 48%, it's a difference.
Yeah.
And then the following week,
2%.
you look at it and you're thinking it's now 45%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's still, you've got now 5% for yourself for what you want to do rather than giving it away to.
Yeah.
So it's just having that attention and that awareness of, you know what, I do want to make changes. So the moment you change your perception, you're looking for that silver lining of how I can creatively make this a better place for me.
Yeah.
Then you're already making those changes, and you keep walking forward with that intention, and you will be making the changes.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the HK, it's just a much quicker way of making those changes.
Much quicker. I've always stood by this thing, and certainly the last 5-10 years of my life is daily deposits. Within myself and some of my clients in the fitness realm, which I deal with, I tell them the same. It's like you say, the 100 bars of energy. You may be giving 50 of those bars away each day, but every day, if you just deposit little things, those bars start to come back to you. And that can just be thoughts. It can just be thoughts. It can be, instead of like something detrimental, where, for example, in dealing with some of the clients on the fitness side of things, is eating foods that aren't going to help them towards their goals. Yeah. Well, each day, each thought in that day is a deposit towards filling your 100 bars up of where you want to go, whether that, I want to lose weight, or I want to stop being anxious and think like this. Every single thought is a deposit into yourself, where it's a building block that you're building up to get to your, okay, I no longer feel anxious anymore. I no longer cheat and eat shit food that I shouldn't be eating, for example, And I think that's a good way to put it, how you've just said, is take back that control. Yeah. With
the awareness.
Yeah.
And intention.
The awareness, but the intention of, okay, this is what I'm trying to solve. Yeah. This is where I'm trying to get to. I could stray over here. I could get sucked in and give away my energy here. Yeah. But my intentions are, I want to be here. So I'm depositing back into myself. Yeah. In a positive manner. Yeah.
And the importance of that is, if you do step off that path and you do eat the wrong food, for example, or you do have a negative thought,
which
you do end up in it happens.
We all have. Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Don't then dwell on that and then start soaking up all that energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Let it go. I know. Then you'll become more aware. And the moment you start being aware of these things, the changes are making place
like you
have
said,
taken
though,
place.
I gave away 50 bars.
Yeah,
Now I'm only giving
that's
48.
right.
Now I'm 45.
So then don't feed the fact that you made the mistake
Hmm.
or you fell off the wagon.
Yeah, that's a great
It's
way of
really
putting it.
important, because otherwise you're just falling into that dimension of
Mm-hmm.
regret, guilt, shame, whatever it may be.
And just like you say, you're fueling another game completely there, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I'll vouch for the whole scenario of the timeline being shifted on the HK with that. The HK does allow that process to happen a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So you're almost going back and dealing with the root cause of what's causing that.
It's instantaneous.
And
It takes place in
yeah.
that moment. That's why people get up feeling lighter and feeling like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I feel like a huge cloud has been lifted from me. I've had that many a times.
Yeah.
I feel so much lighter. I just feel as though, you know, all the pressure's off my shoulder, all the weight's off my shoulders. You know what I mean? It's said regularly, and it's like, yeah, there you go. That's again, the importance of it's permanent. It's not just feel good on the table or put you in a trance and all the rest of it. You know, HK works with this client's spirit. Only spirit knows how, where, why, and when that dimension took place, can make those changes.
Yeah.
And then,
which I guess in a conspiracy way we could say that's a way of time traveling.
Yeah,
but we won't go there. I feel that's a good place to end it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for everyone listening. I just whenever I hear people say this, it kind of does my nutting a bit. So I was doing my nutting even more, 0 point that I'm saying it. But now being on the receiving end of actually putting something out, I can see how important it is to subscribe and like. Because I had a look for this on the internet by just typing in Ted Talkz with a Z, didn't come up. I don't know how long I could have looked for and maybe found it, but couldn't find it anywhere. Obviously, I just have to go back to the original link when this was done that Scott sent to me. But by liking and subscribing, it's actually going to
help people find the podcast.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we all have, and this is the reason why I've ended up doing it, we all have a degree of responsibility if we learn something to share it.
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that wraps up this episode. Any comments are appreciated, because then it gives us a direction to go for the next conversation.
Or clarify or go deeper into what we've said if people want any more clarification or a bit more information.
Yeah.
A bit more clarity. So
we were a bit thinking about where we were going to take this episode, but we had 1 or 2 comments asking about the HK, the holographic kinetics, a bit more, which is why we decided to go down that route.
This is the beauty of just allowing, without sitting cross-legged, being in a meditative state, sitting at the top of a mountain smoking flowers, just allowing spirit, just whilst I'm talking,
to guide.
A little intuitive thought comes into my head. Okay, we'll go there, and it takes us where we need to go. So hopefully everyone's got something out of this. If not, there's any confusion, then you can ask for questions, etc.
We'll try and clarify. Yeah. Right. Okay, cool. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.